I'm not sure if y'all spend as much time on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, as I do. But if you've been on that platform at all these last couple days and you are really into NBA basketball and follow it on X, you've probably seen the discourse about Jokic's ridiculous performances and how that pertains to his MVP case because of the Nuggets team struggles this season. I think that MVP discourse in the NBA the last 2 or 3 years has kind of gotten out of control, to be totally honest, and it's really coming to a head this year with different fan bases just going at it. And look, I'm a Mavs fan. I'm going to try my best to be completely unbiased this video, but I will, again, preface, in case y'all aren't aware, I'm a Mavs fan, and I think Luca deserved to win MVP last year. I'm going to talk about why that is, and I'm also going to talk about the way that MVP discourse has been changing on social media and how it is negatively affecting, I think, people's perception of these types of awards and just almost devaluing them to a certain extent, but it shouldn't. So before we hop into it, if y'all haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards, I was going to say 1,000, but I guess we're on to 2,000 subscribers now. Appreciate all of y'all subscribing. We just hit 1K subscribers, and I really appreciate all the love. But I'm going to keep pumping out content multiple times a day. Really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe. Without further ado, let's hop right into it. So this tweet that I have pulled up is a great example of this discussion, which is basically saying that since Jokic was #1 on the NBA.com MVP ladder, which was released 2 days ago as I record this video, which, to be fair, was prior to Jokic's 56-point performance against the Wizards in a loss, and then the ridiculous performance that he had against the Hawks tonight, which was, 48, and a bunch, obviously, ton of assists, ton of rebounds. I didn't watch the game. I was watching football today. But this is kind of the type of thing that sparked this discussion on Twitter, which is basically that last year, Luca pretty much didn't win MVP because of the team record and because they finished in the 5 seed. And so the interesting discussion now that people are kind of going at each other's throats about is the fact that the Nuggets kind of suck. And they're not likely going to finish with a top 4 seed, top 3, top 2 seed in the West, which generally is what you on paper need to get to win an MVP reward. And it was something that kind of, it seemed like, disqualified Luca in a lot of ways last year. Look, I am 100% of the camp that he deserved to win MVP last year. I was a bit surprised at how little chance it seemed like he had to win in the MVP award last year when it came to the national media. And I thought he was pretty definitively the most valuable player in the league last year. Now, that is not saying that I think he's the best player in the league. I think he had the best season last year. And at the end of the day, that's what the award should be. Russell Westbrook, for example, his 30-point triple-double that he averaged in 2016, was a similar story. Team wasn't great, but he won the MVP because he did historic things. The Mavs, to be fair, were not great until they made the moves for PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, made the team much better, and then finished the season really, really well. I believe something along the lines, I forget the exact number, but it was 20-something and like 8 or 9, basically, to finish out the year. A really, really good stretch down the stretch where they won the vast majority of their games and were playing much more like a top 3 seed. And that has continued after a rough start this season for the Mavs as well. The problem is, last year, Jokic wins the MVP. If you compare the numbers, Luca puts up 34, 10, and 9, having a ridiculous year. Now, keep in mind, Jokic did still, understandably, have 26, 12, and 9 and had a more efficient season than Luca did. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Jokic was not a deserving MVP candidate in his own right. I just personally believed that Luca deserved to win the award more last year. Now, this year, there are a lot of people on social media pushing the narrative pushing two narratives. One side is pushing the narrative, he's the best player in the world, he should absolutely be the MVP. And the other side is pushing the narrative, well, and it's a lot of, I'll be totally honest, a lot of Mavs fans, but it's a lot of people on Twitter in general, basically saying he's not winning games, he's despite the loss, man, which is kind of the description that was given to Luca last year before they made some trades, to be totally honest, where you have an incredible performance like he did against the Wizards and you lose. And some fans try to discredit a player for that. And I think that's ridiculous. Look, I'm a Mavs fan. Nikola Jokic is the MVP this year, plain and simple. At this point in the season, 25 or so games in, he is a no-brainer MVP. He's having one of the greatest seasons we have ever seen in the history of the sport, averaging 31.5 points per game, 13.5 rebounds, and almost 10.5 assists, having truly the best, I think, individual season all the way around of his career. I know his efficiency isn't quite where it was these last couple of years, at least, I guess 22, 23. It's right on par with 23-24 and 21-22, as well as 2021. It's right around that same mixed. But look, I don't care that he's the 5 seed. Let's be totally honest. The MVP award should not be coming down to record. Right now, he's the 7 seed technically in the West after a win against the Hawks tonight, and a pretty dominating win. And again, another ridiculous Jokic performance. They are probably realistically not going to be a top 4 seed this year. This team is not deep. They are struggling because Jamal Murray has underperformed. They don't have, again, high level depth at all. They're super reliant on guys like Russ, who can be a bit sketchy. A backup center in Saric, who I don't think is great. Guys like Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, who's been great, but a lot of youth there as well. They just don't have a ton of depth and talent on their roster, especially with Jamal Murray underperforming. And so look, in a deep, stacked Western Conference with a lot of teams playing really, really well, I do have a hard time seeing the path for the Nuggets to be a top 4 seed in the West this year, which is going to make things interesting if Luca continues to play the way that he has. Which as of late, I mean, for the season, he's still averaging 29, 8, and 8, right? Which is still very solid. But since he came back from injury, he's been better than that and has played great. And again, when you look at the standings last year, Luca on paper, probably slightly better numbers. Your Nuggets, 7 more wins. Jokic wins the MVP. Shea finishes second. Luca finishes a distant third in MVP voting, despite, in my opinion, having the best season of the 3 players, but he doesn't win it because he had 7 less wins than the Nuggets and the Thunder did. So, as a Mavs fan, that still eats at me, and that still frustrates me. But I'm also sick of the toxicity around NBA conversation on Twitter sometimes and on social media. And I think this is a great example of people just quite simply overthinking an award, I guess is what I would say. Jokic is the best player in the world right now. Distinctly, no doubt about it. I don't think there's an argument. And he is having arguably his best season of his career, and absolutely single-handedly dragging a team that without him is the worst team in NBA history statistically, to unprecedented heights. I mean, I talked about his on-off numbers in the video that I made on the Nuggets yesterday, and they're ridiculous. They've been ridiculous for years, but they're truly especially obscene this year. The Nuggets go from the worst team in NBA history to the best when Jokic is off the court versus on the court in terms of offensive rating. This team is ridiculous, and they're so bad without Jokic, and yet so solidly competent, and even on certain nights look like contenders when Jokic is playing the way he does every single night. That's the other thing about Jokic, is there's just unprecedented levels of consistency with a guy like him that you just don't see even out of star players. He's totally unstoppable and is doing it at such a ridiculously efficient pace and such high volume on such a bad team. There's no argument to me that he's not the MVP right now. And I'm kind of sick of the discourse around the MVP award in general. Look, winning is the most important thing in terms of winning a championship. Winning is not the most important thing, in my opinion, for an individual award. It matters, but you have to take in the surroundings and the help that the player is getting, the situation that they are in, all those types of things. And a lot of the discourse right now has not been doing that. So I hope that it screwed Luca last year. And I think it is in the process of starting to screw Jokic this year. I think there will be people who try to make an argument for a guy like Giannis if his team winds up with a better record and a better seed than the Nuggets do. People are going to try to do it. Tatum is not even close to the MVP. Let's like cut that off before it even starts. It's ridiculous. And I think people are going to do it with Luca too this year as the season progresses and as his numbers continue to improve. And it just shouldn't happen unless Jokic's numbers take a significant downturn. He should run away with the award. I get it's his 4th MVP in 5 years. I don't care. He deserves it, and he's having a ridiculously incredible year and deserves to be rewarded for such. So with that being said, I basically just wanted to share my thoughts on this MVP discourse that's been going on. I hope y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you'll hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe, and I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon. I appreciate y'all. Peace.